to OST Live, a weekly broadcast on blockchain, branded tokens, and token economies built on OST. Open Simple Token, or OST, is a public blockchain platform that allows businesses to launch their very own branded token. And this is the very first episode of OST Live, and we're very excited to have all of you here. Those of you in the chat, thanks for joining us. Kid Token, always. And on this episode, we have an interview with CEO Jason Goldberg. Jason, thanks for joining us on OST Live.
Thanks, Jose, and so glad to have you joining the OST team and hosting this OST Live program. We've got high hopes and ambitions for this project, and really glad that you're going to be dedicating yourself towards it. We'll be bringing together folks in the industry, folks at OST, partners we're working with, and talking about how we can help companies create new economies with blockchain.
Great, and I'm very excited to be part of this series as well. A couple of weeks back, we linked up, and you had this idea to begin this podcast. So, what are some of the goals behind OST Live in the entire series?
Yeah, I mean, I think first of all, it's just a way for us to have some conversations and let people listen in live as well as to watch the videos. Bring some of the OST team out from behind their desks and in front of the community. Talk to the community, talk with the community. Bring some of the partners that we're working with and help tell their stories. We're going to see where this goes and evolve it, but we'd like to keep it as interactive as possible and be a critical part and essential part of our outreach to the community.
Definitely, and I also look forward to meeting each team member individually and sort of showing behind the scenes of what goes on at OST. So I guess we'll get started with the show. First, we're going to talk about OpenST and OST. So last November, you had an ICO for the OpenST protocol. Why don't you walk us through what exactly is the OpenST protocol?
Yeah, sure. So thanks, Jose. And just you mentioned the team. I will just first say that the team is now about 65 people. And we have offices in Berlin, Germany, New York, Hong Kong, and Pune, India. Over 2/3 of the team is on the engineering side, working on building technology. We have members of the team who are both working on improving and enhancing the OpenST protocol and extending it with things like OpenST Mosaic, which we'll talk about as well. And then in addition to that, building OST developer tools and liquidity exchange on top of the OpenST protocol. But backing up a second to where you started this with the protocol. So over a year ago, we came up with basically the OpenST protocol, which is a protocol for enabling any company to create their own token and therefore with that create their own token economy based on the OST token. The OpenST protocol, we launched a version 0.90, so 0.9.0 of the protocol last year in October. And then in November, we did a proof on the OpenST protocol. And then in December, we pushed it onto mainnet as well. And simultaneously, we did the OpenST ICO, the token sale. And since that time, so once we had OpenST on mainnet, any developer could start to build tools on top of the OpenST protocol. And our company, the OST company, which is separate from OpenST Foundation. OpenST Foundation is really it's a nonprofit that exists for the betterment of the protocol. Our company, OST company, took on basically building a business around it and continuing to enhance and build out the protocol and basically licensing back any protocol enhancements to the foundation, as well as building software development tools and developer interfaces that can enable mainstream businesses to take advantage of the protocol, to leverage the protocol in their own businesses without having to write any blockchain code themselves. And so what we've done since the ICO from a protocol standpoint is we've launched a protocol 0.92, which enabled basically APIs into the platform of the protocol and enabled token transfers within the protocol, and 0.93, which further decentralized the protocol. And our team's working currently on 0.94 version of the protocol, which is all around the key management. We call it token holder contracts, Essentially, it enable businesses with tens of millions, hundreds of millions of users to be able to enable their users to hold crypto tokens, to hold branded tokens, without having to have every single one of them write down a private key. So there is a key that is stored in the cloud for them, but they don't have to all write down a private key to make it really easy for mainstream adoption of crypto. I have a little visual, but if you want to go ahead, I have a little visual we can show as to kind of the protocol and kind of how that works.
Great, definitely. I think a visual would be great. As some of these things can get technical, and in the future we will discuss this more in detail. But for now, we will do an overview. I think you're screen sharing now, which is great. So yeah, if you want to.
So yeah, and I think in the next episode we'll have Ben Bolin, our chief blockchain strategist and one of the founders of OST. He'll come on and talk through a lot of technical details, especially around OpenST protocol and OpenST Mosaic. OpenST Mosaic is we're really looking at how do we scale blockchain economies to thousands of transactions per second, and we'll talk about the method behind that and how that we see that this be possible. But taking a step back, just to look at kind of how we position OST. And this is really informed by talking to customers, talking to potential partners. Essentially, what OST is designed is to basically, it's blockchain infrastructure to empower new economies, right? And so whether it's our partner Unsplash, which is the largest utility for photography online, so where over 1 billion API calls per month, 7 billion photo views per month from people going to Unsplash to obtain photos for use on their website, in their apps. Companies like Medium, Trello, and others have integrated Unsplash into their applications. And companies like Unsplash, what they want to do is they want to build a new economy for photography. Another one of our partners is a company called Hornet, which is one of the largest social networks for the LGBT community, and they want to build a new economy around for the LGBT community. And so they set up something called the LGBT token. We have another partner called Feynman, which is a really exciting new company, which is looking at how do you create a new economy around the stuff in your closet that they're not using, and then how do you enable other people to make use of it. But over and over again, we see that what companies want to do with blockchain, and we see the potential with blockchain, and is to create these new economies, and these new economies that go from the old model of trust being established through intermediaries to a new model where trust is being established through decentralization, and through basically through transactions that everyone can see, that everyone can verify, and that you have a network, a technology that enables these new economies. And so a very simple way to think about the OpenST protocol and what we're building on that with OST is if you think about with a company like Unsplash that has more users using Unsplash today than all the crypto wallets in the world, right? So when Unsplash wants to bring its user base onto blockchain, overnight we're going to dramatically increase the number of crypto users, and we need to build a lot of technology infrastructure in order to make that possible. Unsplash is growing like a weed. They have 7 billion photo views per month, 1 billion API calls, and this is what their growth curve looks like. And that's what really informs kind of our roadmap and the technology we're building at OST is how do we solve for things for the Unsplashes of the world, which is things like scalability. How do we make blockchain work at internet grade expectations, and then usability, integration with apps in a trusted manner, and then also creating liquidity between tokens across blockchains and with various currencies. And so what we're building at OST is, we call it the complete blockchain toolkit for business. And we have a solution stack, a technology stack that we've been working on. And it exists, basically it has a protocol level, middlewares, APIs, and SDKs for software developers, and blockchain management tools for more user-facing. And we've been working our way through this stack. We've had the same picture we drew a year ago. We started off last year with the OpenST protocol, and then we've built a lot of these engines that you see in the middle and the APIs. And we've been working our way down the stack with what we call OpenST Mosaic, and up the stack with more business-facing and user-facing features. And so the quick visual that I'll show you is just kind of what the protocol is all about. And so the OpenST protocol, very simply, think about a company like Unsplash that has tens of millions of users and billions of transactions that it wants to bring onto a blockchain to create this new economy around photography. They don't want to do an ICO. They don't want to have their own traded token, but they want the benefit of creating a cryptocurrency-backed economy. And so what the OpenST protocol enables any business to do is to stake the OST token on Ethereum, which we call the value chain, against creating their own token as a mirror image of the OST token on OpenST side chains, which we call the utility chain. And then all the transactions that happen within the Unsplash community all happen on these side chains. And this you can scale. The side chains are scalable. Almost think about how when a business wants to kind of scale up their user base on AWS, they don't need to worry about whether AWS is going to be able to scale with them. The side chains you can scale to millions of transactions. And then the essential part of the protocol is to be able to take a snapshot of transactions that happen on the side chain, whether it's 100,000, a million transactions, and asynchronously sync them back to the value chain so that people who, let's say, if I earn an Unsplash token and I then transfer it to you and you transfer it to someone else, that person knows that the value that is backing the Unsplash token, the OST token, is theirs. But you don't have to have a million transactions written to Ethereum, which could be very slow and very costly. Instead, you can have a million transactions asynchronously kind of reflected on public Ethereum. And this is essential to trust, but what's really essential as well is to scaling Ethereum to mainstream applications and to tens of thousands of transactions per second, which is what we're working towards as part of the OpenST Mosaic extension.
So here, I think that's a great visual. You have there two different things. You have OpenST on the right, and you have OST on the left. So OST is a token, while OpenST is a protocol. So what are some key differences between these two things and how they work?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at, so a couple things in this, right? So OST is the token, and that is meant to function within the OpenST protocol. The OST token is a token that we minted in before our token sale, and then we did the OpenST ICO for the protocol last year when we took OpenST to mainnet in the first version of the protocol that enabled businesses, software developers to create tools on top of OpenST. And the OST token is used as basically you stake it in the protocol to represent the value that the branded tokens are backed by. And then the OST token is also transposed onto the side chains to be able to be used for basically for gas, for transaction fees on the side chains. And that gas on the side chains will be orders of magnitude, 1,000th or 1/10,000 or 100th of Ethereum gas prices, and at much faster speeds because the OpenST side chains function in a collaborative manner, whereas Ethereum's proof of work is much more competitive. And so what we do here with this method is we leverage proof of work on Ethereum for its security, but we leverage the side chains for speed and for scalability.
Great. I think that's a great visual, and the reason for the OpenST protocol is it helps scale. Any business can use that if they have millions of users, because currently there's some scalability issues on Ethereum. And if you're listening to this on a podcast, you can go ahead and click down in the description below. There's a link to the YouTube video. But I want to move on. We'll do future episodes where we talk about this more in depth on a technical standpoint. But I want to move on to some recently released roadmaps about the company. Jason, if you can walk us through a recent roadmap that you guys released. I believe it was a 4-year roadmap up to 2021. If you can pull that up and sort of walk us through what's happening at OST.
Yeah, sure. So are you able to see my screen now?
Yeah.
Great, excellent. So yeah, we actually released a couple of weeks back an update to our roadmap. And we call the roadmap basically our blueprint for scaling blockchain economies to billions of users. And milestones along the way there is to tens of thousands of transactions per second, and billions of users is obviously that's billions is a large number. But if you add up the businesses and the companies that we're either partnering with already or talking to, it adds up to billions of users across those companies, and we need to make sure that we build blockchain economies in a way where it can scale to those users. And what our roadmap consists of, and it goes back to the solution stack, the technology stack that I presented a few minutes ago, is essentially our roadmap. It has three major components to it. So three, we call them swim lanes in technical jargon, but three major areas of focus. One is at the infrastructure level, which is how do you, basically it's the piping, it's the picks and shovels for enabling scalable and decentralized token economies. The second is developer tools. And so if you think about the protocol is the infrastructure, developer tools are things we build on top of the protocol so that developers don't have to build directly on the protocol. They can if they want to. So everything with the OpenST protocol, and as we add more enhancements to it, everything in the protocol is provided via open source. And then we're developing more proprietary developer tools, which are APIs, SDKs, and dashboards that are available at OST.com. That enable companies and developers to make use of the OpenST protocol without much work on their side. So, for instance, we've had a couple hundred development teams and partners who've been using OST Kit, which is our developer toolkit, over the last few months as we've been going through various phases of alpha. And those developers have been able to integrate basically the OpenST blockchain technology and to create their own branded token economies without having to write any blockchain code. We want to make it to be as simple as copying and pasting a few lines of code into their apps in order to use OST and to get the benefits of the OpenST protocol. And that's been exciting to see. We just finished our third phase of alpha trials, alpha challenges, as we work towards more releases over the course of this year. And I'll show in a minute kind of where we're at on that roadmap. And then the third kind of element of the roadmap is what we call the branded token exchange. And this is all about providing liquidity solutions. So if you're that Unsplash photographer and you're earning tokens because you're uploading photos that are well appreciated and well downloaded on Unsplash, how do you go from Unsplash token to pay my rent? And those are really interesting problems to solve. They involve both legal, regulatory, and licensing, which we've been working on. We've been investing a lot of time and effort into those areas, as well as technology solutions to make these swaps seamless, and liquidity solutions to get convenience around how people can get their currency really fast. And so these are the three major areas: the infrastructure, the developer tools, and the branded token exchange. And where we're at right now on the roadmap, so we have, if you look at kind of where we've come from and where we're going, in 2017, as I said, we launched the first versions of the protocol, 090 and 091, which enabled developers to build on the protocol. And then we also began some research and development around the first versions of our developer tools. And then early in 2018, earlier this year, we launched OpenST protocol 092, which enabled token transfers. So you could, basically what this enabled is for us to do OST Kit Alpha 1, which enabled a business to be able to very easily integrate the OpenST into their apps and have app events trigger token transfers on a blockchain. And then we did OST Kit Alpha 2 in the second quarter of 2018, which enabled very easy token transfers via APIs. And then more recently, we released OpenST Protocol 093, and we began work on OpenST Mosaic. And OpenST Mosaic, we think it's going to be really an innovative and well appreciated piece of work that we'll be contributing to the Ethereum community. It is all about creating scalability of Ethereum. And to give the abstract of a paper that we're working on around Mosaic is essentially think that's about how do you run meta blockchains on Ethereum so you can scale decentralized applications with thousands of transactions per second. It's essentially what it is consensus, Byzantine fault-tolerant consensus rules that allow validators to leverage these auxiliary systems that enable asynchronous syncing of millions of transactions being finalized and committed back to Ethereum. And so Ethereum, which is, as I said before, is great as a value chain, but it's slow because of proof of work. But what we do is we take advantage of the fact that Ethereum works really, really well for affirming value, and then we offload the heavy transaction volume onto the auxiliary systems, so onto the side chains, the utility chains, and then we've created a method for asynchronous syncing of the transactions that are happening, say, within the Unsplash community. And this is, we think it's gonna be a very exciting piece of work. It's actually, we're gonna be presenting OpenST Mosaic a lot in the coming months, and starting off at ETH Berlin in a couple weeks. I'm actually starting off next week at the Ethereum meetup in Berlin. Ben will be presenting an update on Mosaic. The following week at ETH Berlin, which is during Berlin Blockchain Week in the first week of September, Ben will be presenting OpenST Mosaic. Then the following week from that, we'll actually be presenting at the Upbit conference in Korea. And you can see here, we're basically presenting on how do you scale blockchain economies to thousands of transactions per second. So we'll be presenting Mosaic there. And they've got a great, really great group that's coming to the Upbit conference in mid-September. And then our plan is by the end of September is to publish a paper on OpenST Mosaic, which will show the world kind of the Mosaic protocol on how to scale Ethereum to scale blockchain economies to thousands of transactions per second. So I know it's a lot, as I said, but where we're going on this roadmap is, really we see is there's a lot of work that needs to happen over the next few years. Blockchain is still in its infancy towards from where we're at today to where we're proving out scalability and we're proving out developer tools to early next year, where we plan to be having mainnet launches of partners where they can actually bring their basically bring their existing economies or to create new economies and to bring it onto the OpenST blockchain. And what we envision is that by early next year, we have companies starting to do thousands of transactions, tens of thousands of transactions, hundreds of thousands of transactions. And then by mid next year, around this time next year, we can have those millions of transactions that are happening and businesses with millions and tens of millions of users scaling up on OST technology and on the OpenST protocol. And then as they do that, we'll be building out more and more features, not just on at the protocol level to make it more decentralized and establish more trust and establish more scalability, but also more features within OST on the software side, the toolkit side, to enable wallets, to enable more things like economic stability and analytics, and then even how to do marketing on the blockchain within the branded token economies. And then also the various ways to achieve liquidity as we build up the branded token exchange. So again, how you go from that Unsplash photographer going from I earned some Unsplash tokens for people appreciating my work and using my work to I'm actually able to pay my rent and do this very easily and very seamlessly through the OST system.
Great, and we will jump more into OpenST Mosaic next week with Ben Bolin, which is the chief blockchain strategist at OST. So where is development currently? Do you have sort of an estimated number of the amount of businesses or companies that are building on OST technology today?
Yeah, so we've had a couple hundred development teams that have been working on integrating OST technology. We've had some that have been working directly with us as our partners. We've had others that have been working kind of more behind the scenes. And then we've had a very large group that have been working in the public as part of our developer challenges. And our approach has been to build OST with the community. As opposed to, look, we find a lot of blockchain projects that are kind of technology in search of a user or in search of a use case. We took the opposite approach and we said, we're going to inform this roadmap and inform this technology based on the real needs of real businesses. And so getting developer input, whether it's small developers or larger companies, getting their input and feedback and getting them to work directly on the technology early and often is critical to informing our feature set. As I said, we have about 65 people working on the OST project, 2/3 of which are working on product technology. And a large part of their work is to not just dream up and think up how to solve problems, but to gather input and feedback from the community, whether it's one-on-one interviews, whether it's through help forums, and to find out what features they need and how do we create the right solutions for the needs of their businesses. And so, yep, I'm going to say in terms of where we're at today, Jose, is so what we did is with the protocol is at the end of last year, we released the protocol on mainnet. And then the alpha challenges have all been on testnet because we didn't want people using real money, real tokens during tests. Because with tests, you really want it to be a test, and you're not having a fear for losing anyone's money during those tests. What we're gearing up towards, as I showed in the roadmap, is to have all this pushed onto mainnet. So then we're using real money, real OST tokens that people will be staking against their brand token economies early next year. And we're actually working on some mainnet releases sooner than that, and we'll get back to the community as soon as possible with some updates on that.
Great, and it's very exciting to see all of those proof of concepts developed by the community. So I want to end the podcast.
Yes.
Want to end the podcast very briefly. With the blockchain industry and crypto overall, it's been in a bit of a down cycle lately. So what are your thoughts and sort of what's your take on where blockchain is today and where it was earlier this year, and where do you see the market headed?
Yeah, I mean, look, I've been saying for a long time that I think blockchain technology is, in the early days of the technology development. We're building protocols, and protocols is like building the highways, the infrastructure, like laying the pipes is another way people put it, or the picks and shovels. And the applications that will take advantage of that and be built on that are still, many years to come. And today we still talk about kind of two things. I think when it comes to blockchain applications, one is we talk about taking existing businesses and how do they create new economies on blockchain, and then we talk about DApps, decentralized applications that are entirely new apps that will be building a business for the first time on blockchain technology. But before they can do that, there's a lot of things they need to have in place. And OST is one of the projects that is building blockchain infrastructure for these new economies. But it's going to take time, and it's take time for our project and for other projects to take hold. And that's why we built a 4-year roadmap. We think we're very realistic, very professional around what's going to happen. Look, what's happened in the industry over the last year is a lot of projects went out there and super hyped their capabilities. They went out there and said, we're ready right now with blockchain that's going to change the world. And the fact is that this stuff is still, several years in the making. And you had a lot of speculative action around tokens. First around Bitcoin as a currency, around Ethereum as programmable money that is being used to develop new tokens, and the altcoins that people talk about, and which we're one of them. And just a lot of hype around what the possibilities are. And in some ways, this is similar to, say, the dot-com boom that you saw in the late 1990s, where you had such enthusiasm for the technology potential. And I think what we're seeing now is that we've seen a cooling off because it was all speculation, and everyone's waiting to see some of the actual real use cases. And I think that's a great thing because we're one of the businesses that are building real use cases. And we think that the real value of a token should be based on the market demand for that token. And that market demand should be driven by the actual utility use of that token. And being a token that actually has utility, that the way that the OpenST protocol functions is that businesses will be staking the OST token to use to create and back their economies, to back these new economies they want to create on the OpenST blockchain, and that they'll be using the OST token for transaction fees within those economies. When we get those things going, and we're not that far off in the scheme of things, that's where the real demand for the token will come. And so what I would love to see over the next year is that a lot of projects that were just built on a lot of hype and they kind of fade away, right? And we'll see what emerge out of this is a focus on proving it in real results. And we're positioning our project to be one of the top ones that prove it based on real results. I get asked a lot by folks, well, why don't more people know about OST and know about OpenST? And what I say is, look, the shouting that we're going to do is when we have real things to talk about. And rather than claiming things that don't exist like other projects have done, what we're going to do is we're going to show the world what we can do. And we're going to show the world what we can do in the coming weeks in terms of OpenST Mosaic, which we think is going to be a nice contribution to the community from a technology perspective. We're going to show the world what we can do continuing with our challenges that we do as we launch more alpha versions and then beta versions of OST. We'll be showing the world when we do staking and minting of OST on mainnet very soon. And they'll be showing the world when we have real live functioning token economies built on OST. And that is what we're very excited about at OST.
Yeah, I would agree. OST, you guys are definitely dedicated and focused on the technology. And I think this was a great first episode of OST Live. For those of you watching, I see you in the chat. You're asking if there will be a Q&A today. We don't have one scheduled for today, but we will have an upcoming AMA session. It'll be it'll be early October, late September.
We might be able to move that up even. If the community wants to do some more AMAs, well, we're happy to answer questions. We're still building a programming calendar on this. Yeah.
Great. And, thank you for all of you in the chat for watching. We have Tony, we have Kid Token, Bruno, and all the rest of you in the chat watching this live. Next week, be sure to join us for the interview with Ben Bolin on OpenST Mosaic. And if you want to learn more about OST, be sure to visit OST.com. For the developers out there, click on developer resources. You'll find GitHub repositories, APIs, SDKs, and various community links for developers to engage in our project and development team. And if you want to subscribe to us on any of the podcast apps, we are now on iTunes. So be sure to subscribe there as well if you weren't able to watch this full live stream. And thank you, everyone, for joining us today. And Jason, thanks for joining us today as well.
Thanks, Jose. Really appreciate it. And thanks to the whole community for turning out. Appreciate it.